Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NUFC 360 podcast. Tell me, ma. We are into a second cup final in 3 seasons after beating Arsenal again 2-0. I'm here joined after the match, after the fact, by Ryan and Max. Boys, I mean, how many times have we beaten Arsenal this season? It seems about like the 82nd time. How are you both doing, and what did you both think of the match? Come to you first, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely brilliant again. I think if you look at it, when we got that semi-final, and if we look back and said we'd beat them 4-0 over 2 legs twice, going to their place, beating them 2-0 was impressive enough, but tonight was just as impressive. It was one of those games, I've been bricking it all week. We were chatting about it. It's getting that early goal and how the whole game could swing and how Newcastle were going to come out. We saw the formation. I'm sure we'll touch on that in a little bit. But there was probably a few very nervy people going into that game, especially seeing that we were going 5 at the back. What's that going to mean in terms of our shape, our setup, how we attack the game, I guess. But again, massive credit to Hal. Got it spot on tonight. We were absolutely superb. And I think one of the main things, we simply wanted it more. I think we won pretty much every single 50-50 in the pitch. Up front, we were superb. We made 2 of the best centre halves in the league look absolutely bang average tonight. Saliba, probably a lot of Arsenal fans will say that's the worst performance he's probably had in an Arsenal shirt. Isaac just made him look like he was out of place tonight. So yeah, I thought superb. Gordon again, one of his better games in a while, and defensively again, really really good. Dan Burn, as ever, reliable. Put a massive shift in. Botman came in, just no complaints. I thought it was an excellent all-round performance, and we thoroughly deserved to go through and absolutely buzzing that, like you say, we're going to another final.
Yeah, I absolutely agreed. I mean, Max, Ryan touched on the lineup a bit there. I mean, when the lineup came out for the game, back 5 of Trippier, Schär, Botman, Burn, and Hall, and a little bit of lacking in certainty during warm-ups as to whether Hall would be in midfield or at left wing back. When the lineup came out, did you have any concerns or nerves, like Ryan mentioned?
Yeah, you're almost quite nervous when you have a 2-0 lead going into a game. You're thinking just don't be too passive, or don't be too back heavy, just because we're not going to survive 90 minutes of just full of attacks from Arsenal. So it was good to see that the way we used the back 5 was really aggressive, seeing Shaw so far up the pitch, almost man marking Rice. For the second goal, you saw him just win the ball from him in their own penalty box. So for me, the tactical side of how it's always is, you need to trust how it does get it right often. But even though in the beginning of the match you saw it and was this could be a problem, but from my side it's the perfect tactical sort of approach from how and the coaching staff, to be honest.
Definitely. I mean, you mentioned the tactical performance. I mean, there were some particular wrinkles to our game that seemed to work really, really well. I mean, you look at the average positions of the team throughout the game. That back 5 realistically played like a back 6 for most of that match. Hall and Burn were sort of on their own, sort of doubled up and quite fought wide out on the left. Botman was pretty much on an island at times. The Schär and Trippier on the right, and Murphy coming back a lot to sort of create this sort of right-sided 3. And you ended up playing with a sort of a back 6, a midfield 2, and then a front 2, where Gordon would tuck in and press from the front with Isaac. And it seemed to work. I mean, Ryan, you mentioned that Saliba had a really particularly poor game. I think obviously a big part of that is Alexander Isak and his movement and the pressing that he and Gordon could put out. It made them look like amateurs. They looked really poor. Again, one of the arguably the best centre back pairing in the league most of the time. Then they looked like a pair of school kids up against. It was like men versus boys when Isak was up there. Isak didn't even score a goal. He almost scored 2. One of them was off, and the other would have been an amazing finish that was obviously crashed off the post for Murphy to tap in. David Raya, I think, also had a particularly poor game, but I think a lot of that does come down to the performance of our front line. I would like to, they didn't have anything particularly spectacular or particularly sort of flair-filled to do, but I would like to highlight Sandro Tonali and Bruno for the work they did, because they didn't have they weren't asked to spray raking passes or play neat interplay and whatnot. They did tons of dog work. They were running and just disrupting play constantly. And I think it really shone through Tonali in particular, just how good he is in that sort of defensive midfield role, where he can disrupt play and just get it out wide for Gordon and Murphy and Hall and Trippier to get it up the field. I think they were particularly important, just even though they might not get all the individual plaudits that an Isak or a Byrne or a Botman might get. Outside of that, I mean, you look at some of the numbers were also quite interesting. Obviously they clearly had all the ball. There was a lot of commentary during the game about, referring to comments made by Jose Mourinho about how you can dominate and control games despite not having all of the possession. We had 31% possession, and I don't think at any point in that game did we ever feel like we were going to give it up. You maybe felt that, it would be typical us to have a goal chalked off and then concede, and there were a couple of moments around the box where they tried some speculative long-range efforts, but by and large, we bossed it defensively. One in every 4 of our passes were long balls. We came out with a specific game plan, and that specific game plan worked. Ryan, coming to you, outside of the obvious names, were there any particular standout players for you on the pitch?
Now I think obviously it's a contentious one, and it's one that has been discussed back and forth. I thought Kieran Trippier was excellent tonight. I really do. I thought he brought a leadership and a guile to that defensiveness, and he was really up for it tonight. You could tell, he was everything. He was battling for everything. And you could see it, that every single time the ball went out of play, he's up there, he's trying to rile the Arsenal players. I just thought he was excellent. And we go back to this debate between Trippier and Tino and who's better. And I don't think, it's a healthy position for us to be in. I think the problem we have often is we're trying to compare them who's better. I think there's certain games where Trippier still holds value to this club. When he's playing in a back 5 and when he's got Murphy's support, and undeniably you can't question his quality going forward. And I think, I thought he had a really, really good game tonight. He hasn't played a lot of football. He came in, he gave 90 minutes. He worked his socks off. So massive shout out to Kieran Trippier. No one's denying his quality and what he's done for the club. But to be able to come in tonight and put a performance in a game as big as that, I think he deserves huge credit. And no one can deny his leadership qualities and what he brings to the team.
Yeah, I mean, Max, one of the aspects of the game that did get some people riled up, and it was quite a chippy game. It was quite there was a lot of give and take, a bit of needle between some of the players. There was a couple of calls throughout the game for bookings that maybe weren't given. I think the particular standout was a shoulder check off the ball, and then a pretty bad tackle by Declan Rice on Sandro Tonali.
Yeah.
Do you think, or how lucky do you think Arsenal were to have finished the game with 10 men?
Yeah, I mean, the Declan Rice one, when they the shoulder check you and said, and also clipping Bruno straight off, that should be 2 yellow cards in my opinion. But I mean, it would only give them an excuse to, as they always do, whinge about stuff. I mean, they're gonna probably, I haven't seen Twitter yet, but they're gonna be whinging about something that we haven't even thought about yet. For me, we were just a better team. I mean, it doesn't matter. We could have been 10 men down. I think we still would have won in the second half. I think they just didn't show anything for me, particularly in the second half, that showed these guys deserve to win these games. They deserve to go to the final. I think we showed over 2 games that we deserve. We wanted more. I think Ryan said we wanted it more, and that showed throughout both legs of the games. And I'm so proud of the guys, because going back, we had a really disappointing loss against Fulham. So for them to step it up again and just show that they are actually really good and they can perform this kind of performances. And also the crowd was amazing. I mean, us 3, we watched through the telly, but I could feel the atmosphere straight through, and something magical night for all those supporters at St. James's Park tonight.
I think that's a really good point, Max. That was one that I think we've often been, or people have been critical of the crowd this season, but I don't think anyone can deny the importance that the crowd plays in a game like that tonight. Even from before the game, 10 minutes before the game, they were absolutely bouncing. Would have absolutely loved to have been there tonight. It made a massive difference in terms of, intensity, everything about it, and what makes Newcastle, such a unique and great club. I think fans deserve massive respect for their performance tonight as well.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely. I mean, there was comments made through the actual commentary about this. I think Gary Neville used the phrase "goosebumps moment." I think was the word to describe the atmosphere pre-match. I can never remember his name. The chap who plays saxophone for Sam Fender was on the pitch playing local hero. There was a bit more being done by War Flags than usual. The
club also.
The club was rolling out some banners a bit, and the club hyped up the game a lot, and that did play into the nerves, the pre-match nerves we mentioned. That I think that did play into it, especially for me. Is when we saw the lineup and we saw back five after the club had spent about a couple of days really hyping up the game. It felt like we're potentially jinxing ourselves here, but like you guys say, full credit to every aspect of the team. That includes the supporters, like you say. Everyone was in full voice. I don't know if it came through my mic, but as we've been recording, a large horde of our fellow Geordies just came down the road outside my building, chanting, "We're going to Wembley." Looking ahead slightly to said final, we have obviously tomorrow. We get to watch and see if Spurs can hold on to their lead against Liverpool. They're playing away at Anfield.
I hope so.
See, I don't know about this because you mentioned you hope they can hold on to it. I mean, Spurs will be more desperate for a trophy than Liverpool will. Liverpool have bigger things to play for. So I'm not sure it's as clear cut a choice as we might think.
I think Spurs Newcastle could be potentially the most desperate cup final.
It's like all 20 outfielders, all attacking all at once.
I think about an hour and a half penalty short, I think, and
everyone is missing it.
I mean, for me, I mean, you would rather play Spurs. You've obviously got more chance of beating Spurs on a day, I think, especially given their form and their indifference.
We've got a better record against them than we do Liverpool as well.
And I think obviously Liverpool this season have found a way to win. They seem to be able to grind out those results. And I think you would rather face Spurs. But like you said, Stephen, I think it's obviously a very good point that Spurs would just be as desperate for this as we are. But I do think that we're a better side playing against these sort of sides, playing against these Arsenals. Like we set up and the way we set up, we are a better team. And as mad as it sounds, I'm more confident going into these sort of games than I am going into a Fulham at home, because I think it just the way we play and the way we want it, our style, we're just more suited towards these sort of games. So even if we get Liverpool, I would like to think we've come on enough as a team to at least go to Wembley and it not necessarily just be a day out and an occasion. I'd like to think that we would go there, and this time, with the whole, and not to say the players didn't want to win the first one, but with actual belief that we can go there and win. It's not just a day out. This time, we want to get that trophy, and I think so. Bring it on, whoever we get, but preferably Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've shown this season that our issues with playing away from home have been quashed a little bit. We've gone away. We've mentioned in previous episodes how we have gone away to Spurs and won a game. We've gone away to Man United, obviously having a really bad season, but they themselves, it's still a big stage to play on.
Yeah,
and like you say, we've shown that we can beat. We're confident we can beat pretty much anybody. We went toe to toe with the best team in the league this season in Liverpool and had a 3-3 draw. They might not take the game as seriously if it is Liverpool, but I would probably agree and say that I would prefer Spurs, especially given their injury, the concerns that you mentioned. Max, do you concur? Would you prefer Spurs or do you want a Liverpool final?
No, I'd prefer Spurs. It's Liverpool. We have such a bad record against Liverpool. I think we haven't won against them in ages. It feels like that anyway. And Spurs, we have beaten Underhow like quite a few times, and sometimes very like thoroughly. So for me, Spurs is I don't want to say ideal opponent because that feels like going to backfire. But I think like I'd probably say them because Liverpool still have this sort of like championship mentality, winning quasi like Salah and some of the players they have. They just seem to always get ahead of us and be slightly better. So for me, Spurs would be the ones that you want to face in the final.
Yeah, agreed. If say the final were hypothetically next week, would you stick with that shape and that lineup, or would you revert to the way we've been playing most of the season?
I'd say so. Yeah, back to the 4-3-3 with. Maybe it depends on if Joe Linton is fit or not, because he said next week. So because I think like Shard built some sort of hybrid midfield role or Lewis Hall, whoever. So that kind of worked. It's sort of a good way of just having a low, compact block and but still being dangerous on the counterattack. I just don't feel like that's truly our way of playing, and I don't think Howe wants to play that way exactly. Like I think he wants this way to be the standard 4-3-3 and play like we usually do. So I'd say probably that.
My counter argument to that is it purely depends on who we play. I think if it was Liverpool,
good point.
I would potentially be tempted to go with a similar system to that. It is controversial, but I also think that one of the major issues we have, and I thought Joe Linton was going to be a huge miss tonight in terms of his physicality, his presence, and
same.
like that, what he would bring. But there's no denying at certain times, he does lack a little bit of technical quality in the midfield, and in a game like that, I don't think we necessarily need that much technical quality, especially if you're playing Liverpool. We want to be dangerous on the break. We know they're going to be on the front foot. And the way Gordon seemed to play tonight, I mean, I didn't exactly know what type of role Gordon was in, really. He wasn't really in a set position, was he? I mean, I think when I looked at the team, I thought it would be a 5-4-1. And Gordon would kind of be on the left supporting Hall, but realistically, it was kind of, I don't know, it was a bit of a hybrid. He was kind of almost on the shoulder of Isak, wasn't he? He was just looking, he was floating about and trying to find those spaces. And that's why we were particularly dangerous, because I think Arsenal probably expected just that Isak up front, Gordon be playing on the wing and occasionally trying to break forward. But actually, Gordon and Isak were both trying to play on the shoulder. When Gordon dropped deep, Isak was moving forward and on the shoulder. And I thought it worked really well. So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, sustainably, whether we can do it moving forward or not, I don't know. I think but yeah, it certainly, it's raised new questions again, and I think it's a good thing for us, because I think we need a plan B. I think that's one thing we've called out several times this season, that when things aren't going so well, we haven't had that alternative plan, and at least we're starting to see, there is other dimensions to this team other than just that standard 4-3-3.
Yeah, I think I agree, especially when you can have Fabian Schär playing as a number 10. But outside of that, I mean, there's not really much more we can say other than looking forward to spending a day in London. Max, who can come over from the communist paradise that is Sweden and spend a day trying to watch the final with us all. Thank you, boys, for joining me, and thank you all for joining us and watching. If you like the content, if you want to see more content, leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you feel like it. Let us know down below if what you would do in the final. Would you revert back to our normal shape, or would you stick with the one we did today? And who would you prefer to face in the final? The ultimate bottle jobs in Spurs, or our bogey team in Liverpool? But as always, we have been the NUFC 360 podcast, and take care.